Aloha and good morning. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz and I'm joining you from livestream.travel in Honolulu. We're part of the eTurbo News Group and Hawaii News Online. And today we're not going very far. We're actually staying right here in our state and we're just going one island to the north and welcoming Richard Albrecht, I believe it was, from the Kukui'ula, and I lived here for 35 years. I still cannot pronounce these names, but he's joining us from Kauai. And he will tell you who he is and why we're talking to him. Good morning, aloha.
Aloha, good morning. Thank you for having me today.
Yes, Richard, you're on the island of Kauai. And for those that don't know Hawaii very well, our state has several, Kauai is called the Garden Island, I believe. It's, for many think it's one of the few places left in our state where you really find nature, beautiful landscapes. It's small. How many people you have in Kauai?
Oh, about 70,000.
70,000. So it's basically kind of the size of a big Mahe Island in the Seychelles. So we heard a lot from the Seychelles, about the same size, but it's not an independent country, just an independent island. And later on we hear that it's almost an independent country when it comes to the mayor. But Richard is in charge of a development, what I understand is part now of the Hyatt Hotel Group. And his development is a villa development with full service villa development. And he and also just reopened again for tourism after October 15th. Can you tell us a little bit more where you guys stand and what your property is all about?
Sure. We're on the south shore of Kauai. Poipu area is a really beautiful little beach community that's been here. Originally, the town of Kaloa, of which we are part, was a sugar plantation. It was the first sugar plantation in Hawaii. And we have a handful of resorts along the coastline, including the Grand Hyatt. And Kukui'ula started about 10 years ago, well, actually 13 years ago. And it was conceived originally as first a private home community, and with a club at its heart, a private club. But then there's a small hospitality component that's right in the vicinity of our clubhouse. So first it's a private club with this small boutique hospitality operation. And all of our accommodations are private homes that are 1, 2, 3, or 4 bedroom homes that operate much like a hotel. And so if you stay in one of those homes, you are effectively a member in residence at the club. So it's a really nice destination. It has this feel of a private club, but it has the energy that you get with the boutique hospitality operation as part of it. You mentioned Hyatt. We brought in Destination Hotels and Resorts about a little over 2 years ago to manage our lodging operation. So the club, operate the amenities such as golf, spa, dining, pools, and things like that. And then Destination operates the hospitality operation. So they maintain the properties, they check people in, they provide all the housekeeping, they do all the marketing and servicing of our lodge guests in the home. And shortly after our arrangement with Destination is when Hyatt acquired that company as part of the Two Roads acquisition a couple of years ago. And so that's been super for us. It's a great partnership. They brought a lot of awareness to Kukui'ula, and we're a unique product within the Hyatt product offering because it's different. The place lives much different than a typical 5-star hotel. We have 5-star amenities, but they're shared by relatively few people because really at its core, it's a private club.
And it's really, I'm sorry.
It's 1,000 acres. And I mentioned that we got started in 2006 or 7 and got off to a slow start, as you might imagine. Well, actually it was a very quick start and then ran into the recession. And so the club actually opened in 2010. The golf course and the clubhouse and all the amenities were built during the heart of the recession. And then really took a while to get get its feet underneath it. But in the last 5 years, we've really found our footing, and the change with Two Roads and Destination and Hyatt has been really good for the property. And now we have about 250 members. So a member represents a family that has purchased property here. And so now the club is dynamic and active and fun. And then the lodging program has really found a following, and it's just a really nice place to be.
Now, when you see from the hotel pool within the property, so you have residential living for people that live there all year round, and you have those that come on vacation. Is that correct?
Right. So as I mentioned, it's a resort community, and so we will ultimately have as many as 850 homes and members. We're at about we have about 125 homes complete as of now, but they're predominantly vacation homes, and now we have about 25 or 30 families that live here full time, and we've seen that grow in the past few months. We had a number of families who would come for 3 or 4 months, certainly the winter months, and many of them just stayed because they didn't want to return to the mainland. And then we had a number of families who've been contemplating buying a home here, pardon me, and they left end of February, early March, and then they returned, came back, bought a home, and they put their kids in school here, and they've chosen to make this their home. And I think the virus, the pandemic, made people stop and think about where they're living and how they're living their life, and they moved over here full time. So it's been an interesting transition the last few months.
And when you come to social distancing and all these things we're talking about, this is, I would say, it's the ideal situation, because this is a fairly large development. You stay in independent homes, and you can really live your own life within the property, right?
Oh, I mean, we're fortunate. It's an ideal arrangement for both visitors and our members, because good design in Hawaii is all about blurring that boundary between the indoors and the outdoors, and having the home spill out into the garden, and then also opening up the home to natural ventilation, because we try to minimize air conditioning and open up the home to the trade winds. And so all of our accommodations are in private homes, so you're not having to go up an elevator or walk down a hallway. And it gives someone staying in one of those homes a kitchen and a living area and a back patio. Some of them have their own pool, and so it's really easy for people to isolate within their own family and their own group. And then all of the club facilities have extensive outdoor spaces, so that's really worked to our advantage. So most of our dining is outdoors under covered roof or poolside. Even our spa fitness room, our spa treatment rooms open to the outdoors. So we open up the sliding doors or the patio doors, and so we can get the airflow, which is really what folks are looking for now. I think the more natural outdoor air circulation we can generate, the more comfortable people are. And so, and our fitness center is largely open air, and dining, of course, the pool, golf, and then we have an extensive trail network for walking and biking. So the things that people come to Kukui'ula for are outdoor recreation, and the dining and fitness are really pretty comfortable because you're mostly outdoors. And I think it took us a while to figure out how we would deal with spa treatments, but they now have that figured out, and the spa treatment staff has gotten comfortable with protecting themselves and developed some protocols for keeping the space extra clean, and then cleaning between treatments. So I think our facility is just, we're lucky that it turned out this way, but the facility is terrific for getting people to feel comfortable and not be cooped up indoors.
Did you see an increase in the length of stays? I know properties like this in the Caribbean, in Barbados, we did an interview not too long ago. There was a focus on getting people to come and work from home or from their home away from home with good internet access. Many people can work from anywhere. Do you see such a trend in your facility?
So we're just getting started seeing the patterns with our visitors. For our members, that has certainly been the case. They've come and set up shop so that they're staying longer. And as I mentioned, many of them just didn't return to the mainland for the summer when they otherwise might have. But it's really only been in the last month that people could get here without having to endure the 14-day quarantine. And many of our people just couldn't or wouldn't do that. So with what we're seeing on the books now, the bookings are for longer periods of time. Our average length of stay historically was 7.7 days, and we're seeing people now book for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time. And I think it's the people that we're seeing now in the early stage of the travel recovery. They're people that have a long affinity for Hawaii, a long-term affinity for Hawaii. It's not the traveler who's thinking, it's a once-in-a-lifetime trip to Hawaii. That's just not who we see. They're people that have a long-term connection to the South Shore or Kauai or Maui or the Big Island, and so now they're really they've been yearning to come back, and now they have the opportunity to do so. And so length of stay certainly is extending. And then we've always been popular with people looking for family reunion trips. They'll rent 2 or 3 cottages or 2 or 3 homes and gather here, whether it's for a holiday or a family reunion or somebody's birthday or something like that. And we're seeing more and more of that now, that people are traveling in packs. And so that's happening even more so now.
When I looked at the Hyatt website, and I know you're part of the Hyatt group, I saw your villas are starting from about $1,230 a night. I didn't find any long-term rates. It's all per night. Is this something maybe what is in the making, or are there other options for people who wanted to stay a few months, or you just strictly sell day by day?
So we haven't developed a plan for long-time visitation that is in our lodging product, our club lodge product, if you will. Interestingly, there are homes in the community that can be rented for long-term, and we do see some people do that, but it typically does not include access to the club facilities, the resort amenities. But those homes rent quite well. People are looking for a home that has, say, 3, 4 bedrooms and a pool, then they're not able to use the golf course and the clubhouse and the dining and such. But they are coming really because they want to be on the South Shore of Kauai. But it is something that we're going to need to deal with. We've seen some people come to the island and want to stay for 3, 4, 5 months at a time. But remember, these homes are all owned by families. And so most of them aren't inclined to give up their home for an extended period of time, because the reason they buy the home here is they want the flexibility and the ease of coming and dropping in when they want, or having their kids or friends come use the property. So we haven't got that figured out just yet, how we would accommodate long-term rentals in that operation, but it's something we certainly will have to think about.
When you look at the island of Kauai and the reopening of the state of Hawaii, there have been some changes. And before, everyone visiting our state during the heights of the corona crisis needed to go into quarantine for 2 weeks after they arrived. And then it was changed on October 15th, when the state government developed a pre-testing system where visitors or future visitors can get or have to get within 3 days of arrival in the state of Hawaii at approved pharmacies and drugstores across the nation. We also recently, just last week, opened up to Japanese travelers with a similar system. The differences between the Japanese and the American visitors, Japanese, after they return home, they still are facing 2 weeks quarantine in their own in their home destination, what of course makes it a little bit of a challenge. And I know Governor Ige is working very hard on a solution. Now, when it comes to the island of Kauai, things have worked a little bit different. I know people are well more aware, have always been well more aware of environmental issues, health issues. There had been protests not too long ago in Hanalei on Kauai's North Shore, and people are very concerned about the situation bringing the virus in. So the mayor in Kauai, as far as I know, also wanted to require a second test within 7 days of the first test. That was then, I think, not approved by the governor. So where do we stand? How do people travel to Kauai right now?
It's been an interesting several months. And as you know, there was a goal of opening the state up to pre-travel testing on August 1st. And they weren't able to pull it off because they couldn't organize the infrastructure of testing and all of the controls and monitoring and so on. So, it's been really interesting here on Kauai because we've been so insulated from the effects of the virus. I mean, it's been extraordinarily safe here. I think Mayor Kawakami has done an extraordinary job of protecting the people and basically they're going through the process of closing us down. And the challenge, of course, is reopening safely. But because we've been so insulated from the effects of the virus, we haven't had to adapt in the same way. And so it's a little concerning now. And I know a lot of people on island are very concerned. And some of that is just based on not knowing how people on the mainland have adjusted, or even Honolulu, how folks there have had to adjust because it's been much more present. And so we've had the luxury of being relaxed and comfortable, that you're not exposed to the same degree. And so we haven't had to do that. Having said that, I think, the mayor recognizes that we can't continue this lockdown indefinitely, that small business owners on the island are really struggling, and there are very few hotels open, which then cascades down to all the employees that are out of work, and then the restaurants, and any number of restaurants have closed and many aren't reopening. So there's this economic tragedy going on that we need to ameliorate. And so you may know that Mayor Kawakami pushed to have Kauai approved for what they call bubble resorts.
Yes.
And that was issued as to be effective October 1st. And Kukui'ula was selected as one of the first of two. And the premise is that people could have a wearable device that connected to their phone, and we established a geo perimeter. And as long as people came and stayed within the property, they called it an enhanced movement quarantine. And we concluded that we would require people to get tested before coming from the mainland and participating in this program. But we were prepared for that, and actually did run our bubble for a couple of weeks. And then just about the time that was announced and approved is when the state ultimately decided that they need to move forward. And it's been challenging for Mayor Kawakami because he has to get approval for these things from the state. And I think the state rightly wants to have some consistency across the various islands so that consumers aren't confused. And frankly, they are. I think this opening has been challenging. People, there's a lot of confusion about the testing and what they call them trusted travel partners. So it gets better every day, but now the testing is more available. People living in rural areas coming to Hawaii are having a hard time getting the test. So there's a fair amount of stress that travelers endure to get here. Did they get the right test in the right location? You have to do it within 72 hours. What happens if my flight's delayed? I mean, traveling is stressful enough as it is, and then you add this layer My wife is returning from the mainland today, and she's worried if she's going to get her positive test in time, and what happens if I don't. Pardon me. And people coming from LA, San Francisco, Seattle, those markets have plenty of testing resources available. But if you're coming from Salt Lake City or Phoenix or Denver, they're not as well equipped. So they're dealing with some adjustments and growing pains. But I will tell you that once you get through that, once you get through the air and get through the airport, and people are astonished. They arrive and there's the National Guard standing there to ensure that they filled out their form, and it's a little bit alarming. But once you're here, it's wonderful. And I will say the past several months have been surreal at some level because we were so isolated. It felt like the 70s here. The beaches were empty, the roads were empty, and it was special. So when you see these protests, partly it's because people had this window into the island to ourselves. And there's a lot of people who don't want to give that up. They want that feeling that, this of having the island to ourselves, but there's this large segment of the population that needs to get back to work. And more importantly, at the root of Hawaii's culture, this hospitality, ho'okipa, our people want to get back to work because it's really what they do. They have this kind of desire to care for people. And I know that they enjoyed a couple of months off there for a while. And I understand, people were going to the beach and they're going spearfishing and doing their things. And there were very few people in the waves, but now people have a desire to get back to work.
And I think it definitely stops our discussion on over tourism and the discussion also in Kauai during the super ferry times.
Yeah.
And, so it's moving forward. But how technically does it work right now? And I'm confused. And I live in Hawaii, but I know there are tests necessary to even fly between some islands, and there's no test necessary to fly between other islands. So if someone comes into Honolulu, can they easily transfer to Kauai, or is there another test required, or is it probably they should fly directly to Kauai? What flights are operating directly to Lihue? What's the best way to get to the island of Kauai?
Well, I suppose it depends on where you're originating from, but there are direct flights into Lihue from Seattle, San Francisco. I don't believe Oakland has returned yet, but there's a direct from LA on Delta. I think San Francisco is United, and there may even be a flight. Alaska may have restarted its flight from San Diego. And what we have found is that the screening process is easier if you fly directly into Lihue. If you fly through Honolulu, you get screened there, and then you transfer over on Hawaiian most likely. Southwest has service now. You then get screened again. And when I say screened, there is a form that you have to load onto your phone, and you fill out information about yourself and your recent health history. And then as soon as you received your test results, you can upload that to this form on your phone. And so that's all available on the state travel site. There's some really good links. Health.hawaii.gov has links to all of the safe travels programs. And so you have to fill out this form. The test has to be from what they call a trusted travel partner. It's not just any test. It's the NAAT test, and it has to be from one of these specific providers. And I think there's certainly been confusion about that people have gotten the NAAT test, but not from one of the trusted providers. And so that's something to watch out for. But like I say, that's all getting better every day, and they're improving the testing. That United Airlines has something in the airport in San Francisco. There's a number of facilities. I think Alaska Airlines has something in the airport in Seattle, and Hawaiian Airlines has a facility. I think it's outside of LAX, but right adjacent to LAX, and they provide the quick test. So with a little bit of research on the the HTA site, you can learn where to get the test. And then, but if you can fly directly into Kauai, you're not going to have to get kind of processed twice. So to go inter-island, as my understanding is that for people to go to Honolulu, you don't have to be tested inter-island, right? That's not to say from the mainland, but if you're coming from Kauai or Maui or Big Island, you can go to Honolulu and not be tested. But when you come home, you have to be tested. Now, I believe if someone travels from Maui to Kauai, they have to be tested. And there are other providers that you have to have within the 3 days of travel. And one of my, a number of our employees have gone to Honolulu for medical checkups or certain things like that, or dealing with immigration or whatever. And so they can go over, but then to return, they have to take the test, which means they get the test over there, and then they come back with that test on their phone, so they get processed. So, the state is figuring it out. And
Yes.
The wonderful thing about Hawaii is this culture is so open, and these extended families, the aunties and uncles and these families are so extended, right? You go to the beach and on the weekend and you'll see these tents of 3, 4, 5 families. And so I think that gives the elected officials or the concern that this comes in and one person in the family is infected, and now all of a sudden the whole family is infected, because it's just they're sharing food, they're playing music, they're bouncing
Right.
babies on their knee. And like I say, it's one of the really great things about the local culture, but it means that they're really vulnerable. So I think they've been right to protect the people here. And so it's been complicated transition, but it's getting better every day.
Yeah, no, and I have to agree with this. I mean, living here myself for more than 33 years now in this state, we criticize our government a lot, and I think lots of this is rightfully. But I think the situation we're going through right now, this kind of emergencies, we are really serving an example, not only in the United States, but also globally in the way we have handled this virus. When you look around in the rest of our country, numbers are skyrocketing. They're scary. And we're still keeping our state fairly safe. And that, of course, takes a lot of planning. It also takes a lot of discipline. And I think the fear we have with our visitors many times is that we need to educate our visitors before they come here. So they're prepared what is expected from them and how they could really enjoy their stay here in our state, and at the same time stay protected and also protect us, the people who live here. And we're making progress. I agree with you. I witnessed the opening of the testing facility at Honolulu International Airport, what will be used a lot for inter-island travelers. And I got a test myself. It was very easy. It took 5 minutes. But of course, I was there with the mayor, so there was no line. But with no line, it took really just 5 minutes, and I had an email 4 hours later telling me that my test was negative. What is good to know, regardless. And yes, we are making progress, but it is a situation we need to stay on top every day. We cannot let our guards down in going through this. And many people have feared with the opening of tourism, our numbers would increase dramatically. Now they have increased a little bit, but they haven't increased dramatically. And when they increased, it's really doesn't seem to go back to the increased number of visitors. It goes back to other clusters, family situations like you explained. So there's so many factors, but overall, I don't know if you agree with me, traveling to Hawaii can be a safe and rewarding and a very pleasant experience. Can it not?
Absolutely. I think that I traveled to the mainland in August. We have a new grandbaby, and I hadn't met her yet, and so I felt I had to go. So I went, and when I first got on the plane. It's the first time I'd flown in 6 months, and I was on edge and really, really guarded. And then I got to LAX, and I was, kind of walking around, and I was on high alert. And then after a few moments, I looked around, and people had adjusted. And then, I think it gave me a sense that, okay, people on the mainland have been living this with longer, and they've had to adapt. And it made me, I got to see how people had adjusted there. But certainly it's, with all and we've learned so much more about this thing in the past few months, but I think you can fly safely as long as you protect yourself. And I was really impressed by Delta Airlines and how they took care of me, and they ensured that people were wearing the masks, and they did a terrific job. And so, we hear, I think once people get here, I think that they get the positive test, or the negative test rather, and then get here, we are asking people to voluntarily take a test 3 days after they arrive. And some folks are doing it and some are not. And I think the number of people who've tested positive after coming is really quite low. So for the most part, the testing protocols are filtering out and keeping us as safe. But once you get here, it's pretty darn nice. And I was in much more heightened state of alert when I was on the mainland than here. Having said that, doesn't mean that we're allowing people on property to take off their mask and parade around. Our primary concern at this point, aside from keeping members and guests safe, we need to make the staff comfortable that they're not taking an unreasonable risk, because so many of our staff live with their parents or with their kids and grandparents. However, we need to make them feel safe so that they're not taking an unreasonable risk that exposes their family. And the club is funny. There's this warmth that the people have. They greet everyone with a hug, and it's a little bit alarming for some people, but we've had to discontinue that, obviously. So people are adjusting, but it is the staff knows the members, they get to know the guests. Because it's a small hospitality component, we're not dealing with a 250-room hotel of transients turning over every 5 days. It's a very small group, and so it's very intimate and personal. And so we're having to learn how to be careful and safe, but still have that friendliness and the warmth that people come for. So that's been challenging. But I must say that once you get here, it's pretty darn nice. My daughter lives in Seattle. She was here about 10 days ago, and she said it's kind of the first time in 6 or 8 months she's really been able to just kind of relax and catch her breath.
What are the changes in the hotel operation? I know yours is it's very boutique, but you also have the Grand Hyatt, you said, on your property. Well, what are the changes in regards to the operation? Like, do you still get daily your room cleaned every day? How are the rooms cleaned? Is it any different from what it was last year? What about buffets? Are buffets still there? Breakfast buffets? Or I heard breakfast buffets are a thing of the past. What should people expect if they stay in a hotel these days?
So first, one point of clarification: the Grand Hyatt is up the road a couple miles.
Okay.
But we made some changes at the club that are, certainly the cleaning protocols have been changed and intensified around all of our facilities. If someone, after a table clears in the dining room, we spray it down. We, not only the tabletop, but the chairs, so that there isn't any transmission that way. Staff obviously wearing masks. We have sanitizing stations at every point of entry into the main clubhouse building, and we insist that people wear a mask the moment they step on the porch until they're seated at the table. We've had to remove all of the bar stools from the bar so that people aren't sitting around the bar and congregating. And That's been hard for some to adjust to, because that's one of the great aspects of the club. We drop into the bar and get to meet folks and chat with the bartender. And so we've had to make that adjustment, but we have another patio and game room that is across the way. And so people tend to go over there, and they're spaced out. We have done away with all of our buffets. And, you know, being a club, one of the great aspects of it are the big social events that we do. And obviously we can't do that now. So we've had to adjust to smaller events. They're all outdoors, so we can spread people out. We had a barbecue the other night, but it's outdoors. We have a fun event we do called Burgers, Brats, and Brews. And that brings people together, and we have to gently remind people to put their mask back on, thank you, unless they're seated at their table, and everyone is complying. But buffets are over for now, and our breakfast buffet is over. We actually haven't resumed our breakfast service yet. We'll be doing that next week. But we used to have a continental that was free every morning, and then included coffee and muffins and yogurt and berries and such. And we've had to discontinue that. Our fitness center, we now open all the doors and windows, so we're saving money on air conditioning now. But we've spaced all the equipment out, and there's spray bottles and hand towels. So one of the great side benefits of this is people are really diligent about cleaning up after themselves in the gym now. You know, for years we always wanted people to clean up after themselves in the gym. Now they're doing it. So that's been a nice change. We haven't yet restored all of our kind of group fitness classes, and we'll be doing that starting next week and moving those outdoors. We have a nice yoga program, and we've had to restrict class size, and then we've been doing some of those at a remote area we call the Sunset Deck, which is a covered lanai up in a garden with a great view, and we'll do yoga up there. And historically we'd have 12 or 15 people there, and now we'll limit it to 6 or 8, and then people can do it on Zoom. And so some of our members are participating in these fitness classes from the mainland. So I think some of the other things that we've done. In terms of housekeeping in the homes, we have reduced the frequency. We only do housekeeping every 3 days unless someone asks for more, in which case we'll up that. But the protocol is that we won't clean the home while the guest is in the home. So they need to either go out on the patio or vacate, which is most of them are out doing something, going to the beach, going to the pool, playing golf, something like that. So that's not that hard. And I don't know what you call these things. The same wand that they use in airplanes that has some kind of sanitation capability. We've bought a few of those for the club. So every evening they go into the fitness center and the spa and our locker rooms and the dining room. And so they're cleaning those with that. So the golf carts, for the longest time, we would only have one person on a golf cart. Now you have to be of the same family group to be on the same golf cart. And then they're doing a really thorough cleaning. Historically, they didn't use a cleanser that was going to sanitize the golf cart. Now we sanitize. So like I say, we're really fortunate that so much of what people come here to do is outdoors. So that simplifies it.
Now, guests that are still required to go through the quarantine, those that may have missed the pre-test, or some of the guests coming in maybe from a foreign country who are changing planes and arriving and need to stay 2 weeks in quarantine. Do you have guests like this, and do you accept guests that have to do their quarantine in your property?
We do, and we've had a couple of instances where people took the wrong test, and so they had to deal with the quarantine. They provided a brief exemption for different tests, but that was only a couple days. So a couple things on that. We do have the bubble still. And so if we know in advance that someone is coming and they haven't gotten a negative test from one of the trusted providers, we have to register them with the county before they arrive that they're going to be participating in the bubble. And then when they come, we issue them the device. And then there's certain areas on the property where they can go, and we ask them not to go. We ask them not to come to the dining room, but we do food delivery. We'll do grocery delivery. They can go to, actually right now we're not permitted to go to the fitness center. But they can get out and walk and go to the, there's a pool that we've set aside for folks participating in the bubble. So we are able to accommodate them. And I think the thing that made that work is just the ability to get outside. It's one thing to be quarantined on property and have to stay there and not be able to get out and about. But our guests and members they lead a really active lifestyle. So the notion of staying stuck in their home for 2 weeks is pretty hard to bear. But if they can get out and go for a walk or go for a run or a bike ride or even go play golf, they're okay with it. And so that has worked well. We had one member come in July and he was training for a run, and he ran. He did his 4 miles or 5 mile run every day. Did 80 laps around his property. So that was asking a little much. But for the most part, now that we have this bubble, people can get outdoors and not be cooped up all day. So that seems to be working well.
I mean, I have to say, listening to you, your property in you pronounce it Kukui'ula, or how do you pronounce it?
Kukui'ula.
Okay.
So it's if you know the kukui tree.
Right.
Kukui tree was known as the candle nut tree, right? And ula is red, I believe. And so it's a place name, historic place name. There were 3 traditional Hawaiian lighthouses, if you will. They were wayfinding places. And so there's Kukui'olono, which is up on the hill, and then there's Kukui'ula, and then there was one other, I believe it's over by the crater in Poipu, and they would kind of mash the pulp. It's like a chestnut, right? And they would mash that pulp into a paste and burn it like a candle, and that provided the sailing canoes with wayfinding for traveling at night along the South Shore. And so we have this historic site on property. I think it's called the Lama Kuhi Kuhi, which is where that lighthouse, if you will, where it was positioned. So it's named after that facility, and this Kukui'ula Bay and Kukui'ula Harbor is kind of the heart of our property here.
Well, this was very interesting to learn, and this is so different from what we heard before, and I can imagine, if it wasn't for the $1,300 a night tag, you probably would have over tourism back very soon in Kauai. Wonderful information, and it looks like it's a real fantastic place to get away from everything, get away from the Corona scare, and it's a safe destination to travel to, and it looks like it's just beautiful. Now, anyone who wanted to get more information on your property, would they just go to Hyatt.com, because that's how I found you, or is there another outlet should they call you, or how should people get more information who are interested in booking you, or maybe travel agents that want to book you for their clients and so forth?
Sure, and we work with travel agents. That's been a new thing for us in the past 2 years with Destination. And so, but probably the best opportunity to learn about the property is at kukui'ula.com. That's KUKUIULA.com, kukui'ula.com. And there's information about the club and the amenities and the surrounding area. And one of the neat things about this place I mentioned earlier, we're part of the Poipu Kaloa community, and people come to Kauai because they want to experience the island. They don't come here to just stay at the resort and not leave. They don't come to sit by the pool and drink a Mai Tai and then chill. People come here because they want to experience Kauai. So most of our members and guests, they rent a Jeep, they go toodle around, they go to the North Shore, they go to Holy Holly Beach, or they go to Kokei State Park to see Waimea Canyon. And so anyway, you can learn a lot about the region and the island. And people say that Kauai is their favorite island, and you get it pretty quick. You get off the airplane and you look and see the mountains and the green, lush green vegetation. You know, Kauai is what people have in their mind. I think you referenced it earlier, but when people come to Kauai, it kind of fits their vision of what Hawaii should be. It's rural and wonderful, lots of small little towns. And so Kukui'ula ends up being a great base camp for experiencing the island, and lots of great outdoor recreation, whether it's surfing, stand-up paddling, canoe paddling, kayaking, fishing, hiking, paddling on the rivers. It's a great spot.
I can definitely agree with this. I've visited your island many times, and it's really a place to rest and relax. I know I brought my parents from Germany many years ago. We spent Christmas actually at the Grand Hyatt, not too far from you, you said, and it was a wonderful experience for everyone. And it's definitely the garden island of the world. And it's the place to go if you want to get away from everything. And it looks like your property is the place to stay if you want to get away from everything without missing all the 5-star amenities at the same time. Richard, if there's anything else you wanted to add.
I really appreciate the time, and hopefully we'll see you over here before too long.
Thank you very much, and stay safe and continue doing a wonderful job for our industry, and hopefully you see a lot of our listeners and our readers booking your property soon.
Very good.
Thank you. Mahalo.
Take it.